Missing someone, love with all your heart. Missing someone, love with heart.
What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's episode I'm going to show you a gray blending technique that I love to do on a lot of clients that are wanting to just blend out their grays without using any permanent color. This client was a perfect candidate for this type of color because she has grown out her hair and everything is pretty much virgin, so that is probably the best canvas to work on if you are trying to do any type of like silver gray blending like this, because that is the cleanest and easiest way to lift the hair. So for my client's color, she wanted more of a dimensional silvery tone, and so we are going to focus on keeping dimension in the color and keeping the nice face frame so that the color kind of frames her face, and when her grays grow out, they act as really pretty natural highlights to the color that I've done. So again, this is all virgin hair. She has a bit of highlights that were grown out on the very ends there. She said it took her about 2 years to grow this out. And so I am starting my balayage in the nape of the neck here. And my first bowl of developer is going to be a bowl of 6 and 20 mixed with the Blonde Me Schwarzkopf lightener. And then every bowl after that will just be 20 volume. My client did express to me that she doesn't wear her hair up too much. She always wears it down. So in the back here, we are going to be leaving a little bit more dimension, but towards the top where she parts her hair and where she'll see more of the color when it's curled, I will be coloring those parts a bit more. So right back here in the back, I am doing more of a chunky weave, but also leaving some more negative space in between my foils so that they get a good contrast and dimension in the back. So the reason why my weaves in the back are a little bit on the thicker side is because I want her to see nice beautiful ribbons of the color, and then as I get towards the top I will start to make them a little bit smaller because you want them to be nice and blended. So I continue this pattern up until I get to the occipital of her head, which is here, and right here is where I'm going to leave less dimension and make my weaves a bit smaller. So here I'm just going in with no negative space other than whatever is weaved out of my weave, and leaving that as the dimension. And so I'll do a few of these back to back. What this is going to do is it's going to give more of a solid color effect on these areas that are going to be hidden behind some weaves that have a bit more dimension. So when you have foils that are back to back like this, it does create more of a solid effect against the hair that's on top. So since we want to kind of have a color that is a little dimensional but still has a good amount of color, I'm going to be alternating doing back to back weaves like this without negative space and then doing a weave with negative space. And so this is going to create some dimension, so it's not totally solid but also not totally two-dimensional if I only did weaves that had dimension and negative space. So whenever a client gets gray blending, the biggest question is how often do they have to come back in? If a client has virgin hair like this and it's fairly easy to lift and gets pretty light, they're able to maintain the tone with the purple shampoo that I recommend to them. I always let them know their options, but I always recommend my clients to use the Pulp Bright Barcelona purple shampoo because I find that that works the best for my clients. And so as they maintain the tone at home, they can wait, I would say most people wait about like 12 to 14 weeks. Some people might feel like they can go a little bit longer. It's really up to them, but again, if they're wanting to stay more on the solid side, it is recommended to come in sooner than later. But for her, since we are doing something that is a bit more dimensional, she might find that this grow out is nice and she can go even longer. So I always gauge it to whenever the roots start to bug my clients, and then also gauge it on what color they're trying to maintain as well. So now you can see as I get closer to the top of the head, my weave is going to be a bit smaller, and this is where I'm going to leave dimension, because as this hair lays on top of the foils that were foiled and highlighted back to back with no negative space, that gives it that solid effect, it will appear as though the root is a bit rooty and the ends are more solid. So as I get towards the front here, before I start those foils horizontally, I do like to take a very paper thin slice along the hairline, and then I will go in and do my standard foiling horizontally up the head. So since this section is below the crown area, this is going to be more of my dimensional section, and then everything above that I will alternate doing a weave with dimension, meaning I will be leaving some negative space in between the weave, and then alternating that doing a weave without any negative space. So let's say if you have a client that is wanting this color but has like permanent color because they've been doing base color for years, this color is probably not possible on someone who has previous permanent color on their hair, because to get these silver tones that we're going to be doing on my client today, her hair needs to be at least like a level 9 and 10 so that the silver tones can show through. And a lot of times if a client has permanent color on the hair, it's really rare that the hair will lighten like safely to these type of levels. So I always recommend, like, if a client does want this type of color and they do have permanent color on their hair, just to have some like backup other colors just in case their hair isn't able to get as light. So here I'm just detailing the hairline again, and since this is going to be the front money piece section, I wanted something a little bit more bold, so I did about 3 to 4 slices and then about 2 baby lights afterwards. So now that we are towards the top of the head, I will be now alternating doing weaves that have no extra negative space, and then alternating that with a weave that has negative space so that she has enough color and enough dimension for the look that we are going for. So whenever I do consultations for any type of client that is wanting to do more of a silver tone, I always explain to them that silver tones are normally blue based or purple based, and I ask them which they would prefer, but I do let them know that a violet based silver does fade a bit better than a blue based silver, because a lot of times if we do a blue based silver or any type of blue color, it does quickly fade green, and violet would just fade to like an ash blonde before it gets to yellow. So that's always a good thing to ask your client if they would be okay with doing a more violet based silver, or just in general okay with having a slight hue of purple tone in their hair. So before I tone my client, we are going to be using my favorite purple shampoo, which is the Pulbright Barcelona purple shampoo, as a pre-tone, and we're going to let this sit for about like 15 minutes. This is going to help me visually see what hairs are really a level 10 and which is really a level 9. And sometimes this gives me a good visual, because when I tone the hair, I like to hit the warmer areas first, because I know that the toner on the hair that is really a level 10 will tone super fast. So this just kind of makes it easy and makes everything a bit more even if I start to tone the warmer pieces first before the lighter pieces. So I am going to start off, and my toner formulations today, I'm going to be using my favorite combo, which is the Pulp Bright Rapid Toners. I'm going to be using Silver and Violet from the line, and for the root, I like to mix these toners 1-to-1 with 6 volume, and then for the ends, I will mix it 1-to-2 with 6 volume, and mixing it 1-to-2, diluting it with a bit more developer does make the color a little bit lighter. In a sense, because it slows down the processing of the color, so it gradually tones the hair, and it just gives me some time but also creates a nice gradient to the color. So these rapid toners work really fast, and I didn't leave her root shadow toner on long enough, so even after this appointment, she did text me later and let me know that she saw a little bit of warm spots where the line of demarcation was from her highlights. And honestly, that is such a quick and easy fix. She just had to come in and I just put a darker shadow root on those areas. And later I just ended up using 6-1 because the rapid toner formulation was obviously just not dark enough for those warmer spots. So I used 6-1, which is a level 6 ash tone, and it was perfect and exactly what she was going for. So it was such an easy fix. So you'll see the after of how it looks from this appointment, but she did come back in later and we did retone the root just to make it a little bit deeper and make it blend a little bit nicer. Sometimes that happens on some clients, like the toner doesn't take as well, and some clients it does. And I have used this formulation on other clients that have as like a shadow root and it's been perfect, but for some reason it just really didn't tone those warm pieces on her, so that is why I had to retone them. Alrighty guys, so here is the after. You can see the beautiful gray blending and the nice pops that this color placement gave. I really love that we chose a more bolder money piece there so that it frames the hair and her face very well. So here's a close-up shot of that root that I was telling you about, how it wasn't dark enough and you can still kind of see where the highlights end and start. So later she did come back in and we just darkened it up, and doing things like that is such a quick and easy fix, and she felt so much better afterwards. Alrighty guys, so that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.